Guys, mid-June 2026 has been, well, it's just been an absolutely wild week in the AI world. We are seeing a massive paradigm shift begin to unfold right before our eyes, and it all centers around this growing tension. On one side, we have the rise of incredibly capable, open-weights, sovereign AI, and on the other, you've got the heavily capitalized, highly regulated proprietary tech giants fighting tooth and nail to defend their moats. We've got a lot of ground to cover today.
Okay, let's dive into this. So can an open weights model actually dethrone the proprietary kings? That is the central question the entire industry is asking this week, and it was sparked by an absolutely industry-shaking release from China's Z.ai. They just dropped a model that challenges basically everything we thought we knew about the limits of open source AI. Can a model you just download and run yourself really beat out the tightly guarded, multi-billion-dollar models from the biggest labs on Earth?
To make sense of it all, we're going to navigate through this chaotic week of updates step by step. We'll hit the open source upset, the giant AI IPO race, retirements and lawsuits, memory and smarter agents, Apple and industry pivots, and finally, regulation reality.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1, the open source upset.
Take a look at the sheer performance of Z.ai's new GLM-5.2. We're talking about a massive 753 billion parameter open weights model. That means the underlying architecture is freely available for developers to download and modify. It's got a staggering 1 million token context window, and it was released under an MIT license. Looking at the data, GLM-5.2 outright beat Anthropic's enterprise-grade Claude Fable 5 in the design arena, hitting a 1360 ELO ranking. So yeah, it's objectively better at web design and front-end prototyping than one of the most heavily guarded proprietary models on the planet. And wait till you see how it measures up against Anthropic's coding king, Claude Opus 4.8. You see this tiny number, 0.7? That is the entire point gap between the OpenWeight's GLM 5.2 and Claude Opus 4.8 on the rigorous Frontier SWE Long Horizon coding benchmark. Opus scored 75.1% and GLM 5.2 hit 74.4%. They are statistically practically tied when it comes to multi-step tool orchestration. I mean, OpenWeight's AI is now breathing right down the neck of absolute proprietary dominance. And this right here brilliantly illustrates why this matters so much to developers. Just look at the pricing disparity. If you're using the API, GLM 5.2 is going to cost just $4.40 per 1 million output tokens. Claude Opus 4.8 is $25. You are getting near frontier, industry-leading coding performance for a fraction of the cost. The math for engineering teams is becoming very, very simple.
But here's the absolute kicker, and honestly the most fascinating piece of context behind GLM 5.2. It achieved all of this using exactly 0 American-made NVIDIA chips. None. It was trained utilizing the Huawei Ascend Atlas architecture. This highlights a massive geopolitical shift. Sovereign AI, these powerful models built entirely outside the traditional US hardware ecosystem, it's not just a theory anymore. It is producing top-tier world-class results.
Moving on to Section 2, the giant AI IPO race.
So how exactly are the proprietary tech giants responding to all this intense open weights pressure? Well, they're gearing up for a massive IPO supercycle. Let's walk through the timeline. It all kicked off on June 12th with SpaceX's historic listing on the NASDAQ at $135 a share. You might be wondering, why doesn't AI Explainer care about a rocket company? It's because the entire AI industry treated the SpaceX listing like a dress rehearsal. In early June, both OpenAI and Anthropic filed their own massive confidential S1 registration statements with the SEC. Anthropic actually filed theirs right after hitting a breathtaking $965 billion valuation. This mad dash to go public makes perfect sense once you look at the scale of capital required. It's almost hard to wrap your head around. Anthropic actually disclosed that they are paying SpaceX $1.25 billion per month for compute. That is $15 billion a year handed to a single infrastructure vendor. This is exactly why these giants are racing to the public markets. They need literal oceans of capital to sustain these operations against leaner open source alternatives. All right, Section 3, retirements, lawsuits, and costs.
Now, with that kind of massive scale, you get some very real growing pains. Product cycles are moving so fast right now, it's giving developers whiplash. Anthropic officially retired Claude Sonnet 4 and Opus 4 right in the middle of June, causing a huge scramble for any developers who hadn't migrated over yet. Everyone is now just holding their breath for the drop of Claude Sonnet 4.8. But while the big players are burning through billions, there's a fascinating rumor going around about a model called Orion 100B. Word is, it achieved its training for an incredibly efficient $1.25 per hour of compute. If that's true, the contrast between giant corporate spending and these new hyper-efficient methods is just staggering.
And the friction isn't stopping at the hardware level, it's bleeding over to consumers. Just this week, a class action lawsuit was filed in California by a developer named Carl Kahn against Anthropic. He was paying $200 a month for their premium Max 20X subscription plan, expecting massive usage limits for his coding tasks. Instead, he claims he burned through 15% of his entire monthly limit in a single 5-hour coding session. It really highlights a growing tension. As developers rely more heavily on these tools for deep, long horizon work, these opaque usage limits are causing some serious frustration.
Which brings us to Section 4, memory and smarter agents. Let's shift gears and look at the user stack for a second, because the tools we interact with daily are quietly revolutionizing our workflows. Both OpenAI and Perplexity rolled out major updates that make your AI agents dramatically better at actually remembering you. ChatGPT drops Dreaming V3, which gives Plus and Pro users double the memory capacity and automatically updates its context to keep your ongoing work relevant. No more constantly reminding it what you're doing. Meanwhile, Perplexity launched Brain. This is super cool. It literally builds an overnight LLM wiki context graph, so while you sleep, it synthesizes your past sessions, your files, and your corrections into a structured wiki. When you wake up, the agent is smarter and perfectly primed for your specific tasks.
Next up, Section 5, Apple, pivots, and talent. If you want proof of how fast this industry is evolving, just look at the shocking pivots happening right now. Here's a question for you. What do you think Midjourney is building next? We all know them as the absolute powerhouse company behind stunning, generative AI art. You'd probably assume they're building video generation or maybe some new 3D asset models, right? Nope, they have actually spun up a healthcare division and are building a 60-second full-body scanner using ultrasound-on-chip technology. They even poached hardware talent from Apple to pull it off. It just goes to show how wildly unpredictable the AI landscape is getting as software companies suddenly decide to branch into complex physical hardware and medical devices.
Speaking of Apple, the iOS 27 beta is officially rolling out, deeply embedding a Gemini-powered Siri and allowing Claude extensions right on the iPhone. It is a massive distribution win. But honestly, the biggest shakeup is in the talent war. Noam Shazeer, the guy who literally co-invented the transformer architecture itself, is leaving his role co-leading Google Gemini to go back to OpenAI. For OpenAI, who is gearing up for their IPO, recruiting one of the foundational architects of modern AI is the ultimate flex to the market.
And finally, Section 6, Regulation Reality. So we've talked a lot about runaway innovation today, but hard limits are fast approaching. That number on your screen, 50. That is how many days are left until the European Union's AI Act enforcement officially begins. And these aren't just polite guidelines. We are talking about real financial teeth here, with fines up to 35 million euros or 7% of global annual turnover for violations. And it's not just Europe either. Over in the US, state-level laws like Colorado's AI Act are already taking effect and actively enforcing risk management programs. The whole "we'll deal with compliance later," yeah, that's officially over.
Which brings us to our final thought. We are watching a true David versus Goliath scenario play out in real time right now. On one side, we have this agile, incredibly capable open weights ecosystem pushing out models like GLM-5.2 at a fraction of the cost. And on the other, you've got these heavily regulated proprietary giants raising trillions of dollars and paying jaw-dropping infrastructure bills just to maintain their edge. So, will the open weights community ultimately outpace the tech giants, or will capital and scale win the day? I want you to really think about that as you use these tools this week. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep building, and I will see you in the next one.